Activist Radio is on the air. You have tuned into the Mark Harrington Show, sponsored by Created Equal. Mark is training a new generation of leaders to take on the culture of death and win.
You don't like abortion, don't have one.
The only thing that can be said to be objective truth is that there is no objective truth.
It does come out in one piece. It comes out in one piece.
I would argue that we certainly are not all created equal.
And now, here's Mark.
Welcome to the Mark Harrington Show, your radio activist and voice of resistance, coming to you live once again from our Columbus, Ohio Created Equal studios. Oh yes, that would be helpful. There we go. Sorry, what a way to start the program. I guess it helps to have the microphone down. Once again, Mark Harrington coming to you live here from the Created Equal studios. Today we're going to be talking about two things. Shouting your abortion. That's what we hear from the other side. We talk about, from the other side, they talk about how they want to shout their abortion. They want to talk about how abortion was the best thing that ever happened to them. That is the new move from the abortion side, the abortion advocates. They want to shout their abortion, talk about how great it was. Some of them even want to say it's the best thing that ever happened to them. Well, we're going to talk about that in light of the Ohio Supreme Court hearing this week, the oral arguments of Capital Care Network of Toledo versus the state of Ohio, dealing with the so-called transfer agreements, these written agreements that are required of ambulatory surgical centers, and why abortion mills cannot satisfy those agreements. These are all going to, this whole thing's going to fit together as we talk about it today on the Mark Harrington Show. But to start out, what I want to do to kind of set the stage here for the discussion of the Supreme Court hearing, which, by the way, folks, you want to tune into this. It's not going to be boring. You're not going to listen to a bunch of legalese. You're going to hear the arguments from the other side. Jennifer Branch, who supports the abortion lobby, is going to be arguing in front of the Ohio Supreme Court. You're going to want to hear those arguments. And your radio activist, your voice of resistance, is going to dissect them as she speaks. But before we do that, I want to set the stage, because this is all about the other side trying to normalize abortion, trying to destigmatize abortion and make it quote unquote normal, right? Well, we know it's not normal, right? It's not healthcare, and abortion mills are not clinics. We get that, but we're going to share with you why that is the case. And before we get to the Supreme Court hearing and the discussions of that, let's watch this video. This video is, to say the least, disturbing. We have this Martha Plimpton. Apparently, she's an actress. I've never seen her on the big screen. I've never seen her on television, for that matter. So I don't even know who this woman is, frankly. But she's interviewing notorious abortionist Willie Parker. Willie Parker claims to be a Christian. He's an African-American, uses the Bible to defend child killing, talks about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and how he inspired him to kill babies. I mean, the whole thing is totally surreal. So what I want to do, I want to play this clip of Martha Plimpton interviewing Dr. Willie Parker, okay, and how she talks about her abortion. If you would, go ahead and play that video for our viewers.
I also had my first abortion at the Seattle Planned Parenthood. Yay! Notice I said first. And I don't want Seattle, I don't want you guys to feel insecure. It was my best one.
Oh, yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Unbelievable.
Heads and tails above the rest. If I could Yelp review it, I totally would. And if that doctor's here tonight, I don't remember you at all. I was 19. But I thank you nonetheless. And if I mean, you probably won't remember because I wasn't that famous then.
And you're not famous now either.
It's a little warm in.
All right, Mr. Producer, that's enough. I mean, frankly, I mean, it makes you want to throw up, doesn't it? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Martha Plimpton. I don't know who this woman is. Supposedly an actress. Whatever. Talks about how she had her first abortion in Seattle, and she talks about it being her best abortion, and then everyone cheers. I don't know which is worse. The fact that she says this was her best abortion, or that you have an entire audience that cheers when she says that. I mean, seriously. Now, something was quite revealing, actually, in that as well. She mentioned that the doctor, so-called, that performed the best abortion for her doesn't even know who she was. Yeah, we get it, right? These abortion doctors race in and race out of the so-called procedure room and kill the babies like an assembly line. This idea that abortion should be something that's discussed between their doctors and their family and their God. I mean, please. These women that go get abortions don't sit down and have consultations with the abortion doctors. They don't even know who they are. They come in and kill their babies and they leave. And she basically revealed that. But she said it was her best abortion, and she's had more than one. Now, she could be in total denial. She could be delusional, or she may actually believe this. And there are people that believe that abortion is health care, that abortion is fundamental health care for women. And without it, they couldn't participate equally in society and compete with men. You have to be able, this is what they believe. You have to be able to kill your baby in order to be equal in society. Some people believe that, and women on the other side of this battle, some of them believe this, that abortion is so-called health care. Well, sitting in the other chair is Willie Parker. Willie Parker is a notorious abortionist, now has written a book defending abortion, talking about how he's a Christian, he's a former Baptist, and all of this stuff. Willie Parker, by the way, is coming to Columbus, Ohio. He's on a speaking tour promoting his book. And I've said this before in prior shows. Can you imagine Joseph Mengele during the Nazi regime and the Holocaust writing a book about what he was doing, and people reading it, and him going on some kind of speaking tour about it? Can you imagine that? I mean, look at the times we live in, where a serial murderer, Willie Parker, can write a book and go on a book tour promoting it. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's surreal. It's surreal. Anyway, what we want to do here is take that idea, that concept that supposedly abortion is health care, that women should be proud of it, that we should protect it as health care, and these so-called abortion clinics are health centers. We want to take that and move on to this case that was before the Ohio Supreme Court this week, the oral arguments of Capital Care Network of Toledo versus the Ohio Department of Health. This happened on Tuesday. Yours truly, along with a contingent of other pro-life advocates from around the state, from Dayton, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Toledo, were there. Ohio Right to Life was there as well. And of course, the other side was represented. And at issue here, and I don't want to get caught up in the legal weeds, but it's very simple. There is something called an ambulatory surgical center. Many health centers fall under that moniker, if you will. And they are required by the state of Ohio to have what's called a transfer agreement, an agreement that allows them to have a seamless transfer of a client from their facility to a hospital, emergency room, or what have you. And it provides them information and a seamless transition from the health center to the hospital. That is required of all ambulatory surgical centers. Well, the abortion mills, again, who aren't clinics, have been unable, many of them, to secure these transfer agreements with hospitals for various reasons. But the main reason is the hospitals just don't want anything to do with them. They don't want anything to do with them because they, like me and many others, believe that abortion's not health care. They're sick and tired of being sent these women who have been botched by abortion and having to clean up their messes. Plus, they don't want to be tied up in the political controversy that surrounds abortion. So these transfer agreements are required of any ambulatory surgical center, and the Toledo Capital Care Network has been unable to secure one for obvious reasons, like I say. And that was the case before the court. So what I want to do, I'm going to play 2 clips here in the next several minutes of Jennifer Branch, who supports Capital Care Network, arguing before the Ohio Supreme Court in this case of Capital Care Network of Toledo against the Ohio Department of Health. So if you would, Mr. Producer, go ahead and cue up that video, and let's listen to Jennifer Branch try to make the case as to why Capital Care Network, or this abortion mill in Toledo, should not be held to the same standard of other ambulatory surgical centers or health centers. Go ahead and play that clip.
Time in August was still in process and didn't fall through until after the new statute was
You're
effective
saying
in September.
if they would have been, they would not have had an agreement in place, but they were negotiating with an Ohio hospital.
Correct.
The health department would have not held that gap against them and say you're in violation of the rule.
Right, and I think that's clear because look what happened here. The clinic said, we're working on an agreement, we don't have it yet. We have a proposed revocation order in August, and asked for a hearing immediately, and the Ohio Department of Health did not hold a hearing, did not schedule a hearing until February.
They respond and say,
Are we having
"Don't
problems
worry
with the
about it."
video?
No, there was the Ohio Department of Health did not inspect.
Okay, well, let's re-cue that up. So what you got there is Jennifer Branch. We're going to try to re-cue this up and play it again for you. In front of the Ohio Supreme Court, trying to defend or make a case for why Capital Care Network of Toledo should not have a transfer agreement. Let's go ahead and try that video again.
Through until after the new statute was
You're
effective
saying
in September.
if they would have been, they would not have had an agreement in place, but they were negotiating with an Ohio hospital.
Correct.
The health department would have not held that gap against them and say you're in violation of the rule.
Right, and I think that's clear because look what happened here. The clinic said, we're working on an agreement, we don't have it yet. We have a proposed revocation order in August, and asked for a hearing immediately, and the Ohio Department of Health did not hold a hearing, did not schedule a hearing until February.
They respond and say, "Don't worry about it."
No,
you know?
there was the Ohio Department of Health did not inspect, they did not investigate, they said nothing to the clinic and let them operate for those 5 months without an agreement with a local hospital. And the reason for that is because they had an emergency transfer in place. They could call 911 if they ever needed to do that. Which
And they're
the
precluded
record-
from doing that now? Call
No,
911?
They're not precluded. Having a written transfer agreement with the University of Michigan is for either emergencies or complications. They can call 911 if they needed to. There's nothing to prohibit that. And other ASFs do call 911, and it's up to that first responder to decide which hospital to take them to in conformance with their own policies and practices. No one ever asks, is there a written transfer agreement? Where should I take your patient?
Counsel, Mr. Carney.
All right, let's go ahead and just end it right there. A couple things that Jennifer Branch talks about. By the way, I wouldn't want to be her. It seems like all she does in her law practice is defend the indefensible. She goes around the country and mostly spends most of her time in Ohio, but she goes around and is in court. She's in hearings at the State House, constantly trying to defend the indefensible. That is, that these folks are not health clinics. These aren't health centers. Abortion's not health care. And they keep messing up. They keep breaking the law. And they can't keep the law. And here's why. As Father Frank Pavone has said so well, that a person cannot practice vice virtuously. Abortion mills kill babies. Abortionists kill babies. And they hurt women. It makes sense that they're also not going to be able to do other things ethically or morally or follow the law. And that's what's happening here. They're constantly getting caught doing things that are illegal, just as they're killing babies. So that's the main problem with Jennifer Branch's arguments. She's trying to defend the defensible. And I'm sick and tired of these abortion mills and these defenders of them crying foul that they're being picked on. Bottom line is this: if you folks think that you're health centers, then act like them, right? And the first thing they need to do is stop killing babies. But if they want to be considered a health center, then they need to follow the law. If they don't like the law, they just can't avoid it or ignore it. The Ohio legislature duly passed these restrictions and requirements on ambulatory surgical centers. And the Ohio Department of Health has the right to write the rules in regards to them. If they don't like them, too bad. We're not picking on you folks. You just got to figure out how to comply, and they haven't been able to for obvious reasons. That's number one. Number two, she talks about 9/11 being available. They could use 9/11. Even if they had a transfer agreement, they could use 9/11, right? That's what she says. Well, the fact of the matter is they don't even do that when they harm or maim a patient. It was released just this week, and Mr. Producer, if you would put up this piece from Operation Rescue. It was released this week by Operation Rescue that Capital Care Network, i.e. Toledo's last remaining abortion mill, was caught on tape, on video here, with photographs and such, of taking a patient who apparently had a perforated uterus. Rather than calling 911, rather than calling Life Flight from the University of Michigan Hospital, which is supposedly where they had their transfer agreement, rather than calling an ambulance, what they did is they took this young lady, stuffed her in a Ford Focus, and ran her to the hospital and dropped her off. Now, you tell me, is this how a health center operates? Is this care for women? Is this how your doctor would behave if something happened to you? I don't think so. They would have called 911. They would have had an ambulance come in. And it was reported, this happened, by the way, on April 1st. And here's the report from Operation Rescue. A medical incident occurred at Capital Care Network of Toledo. A young African-American woman came out of the back door, doubled over in pain. Okay. One of the workers transported the patient to Toledo's hospital emergency room in the worker's personal car. That's the Ford Focus. No emergency services were called, and the pro-lifer followed the car and found out that she was just dropped off. Now, supposedly, Capital Care has a policy as to how they handle these kinds of emergencies. And here it is on Operation Rescue's page. If you would, Mr. Producer, go ahead and bring that back up. And let me read this. This is supposedly the policy of Capital Care Network. Capital Care's policy is to call 911 in the event of a life-threatening emergency where a patient needs immediate treatment. The responding EMTs will transport the patient to the hospital nearest to Capital Care, most likely Toledo Hospital. Patients experiencing less serious medical complications who do not need immediate treatment will be transferred to the University of Michigan Hospital by helicopter or vehicle. Now, that is the official position or policy of the Capital Care Network abortion mill. that they call 911. Well, they didn't in this case. It was reported to the Ohio Department of Health, and the Ohio Department of Health came out with their findings. In fact, they did an inspection of Capitol Care. And what they found is that Capitol Care is in violation of 5 of their regulations. And after that, they filed I don't know, it's not a suit, but they've basically fined Capitol Care Network of Toledo $40,000 because they did not follow Ohio Department of Health guidelines as it relates to the type of situation that happened to this young woman, this young African-American woman at Capitol Care Network of Toledo. So now they're facing a fine of $40,000. And guess what? Jennifer Branch is appealing to the Ohio Department of Health to try to get that fine taken away because of this incident. Here's the bottom line, folks. The reason this is before the Ohio Supreme Court is because Capitol Care Network, like many other abortion mills in Ohio, break the law routinely because they kill babies. Bottom line, they're not healthcare centers, and abortion is not healthcare. Now, what I'd like to do is play a second clip from the Ohio Supreme Court hearing. Again, this is Jennifer Branch. And again, I wouldn't want to be her. She does as good as a job can be done from her perspective, I guess. But I would not want to be her defending these chop shops. Go ahead and play the clip.
A written transfer agreement. The University of Toledo Hospital was banned by House Bill 59's provision banning public hospitals from entering transfer agreements with abortion clinics only. And once the state delegated and handed over,
but wait a second, though.
By the way, stop it right there.
The agreement
stop it right
there.
there.
They were banned.
That tells us everything right there. Right there. Even with or without a transfer agreement, these hospitals don't want anything to do with these death pits, with these chop shops, with these butchers. They just don't want anything to do with them because they're tired of cleaning up their messes and they don't want to be involved in the politics of abortion. That's the bottom line. That's the problem with this. Nobody wants to get involved. Go ahead and finish off the clip.
yes, they did.
Okay,
And our point is, though, when the statute was passed, this clinic could not go back to the University of Toledo and ask for a transfer agreement again.
Abortion clinic.
There was at that point, 8 hospitals had turned them down. The University of Toledo
8 hospitals turned them down.
could not even approach them. And because
Couldn't even
of that,
approach them.
The director of the Department of Health did not have final decision here in issuing a license, and that is why this case and this statute is so different from what happened in Baird. Because in Baird, the director had final decision-making power. If the clinic could not get a contract with a local hospital, if the clinic could not get a backup doctor to sign on, just like here, then in Baird, the director could grant a waiver and just waive the whole written transfer agreement rule and say, you know what? Instead of that, you give me, as Your Honor is suggesting, a policy that you will send the whole file with the patient to the hospital. You have a hospital that is close by that we can send the patient to. The director could put in an order that said you waive this rule of a written transfer agreement because no hospital will contract with you because you're an abortion provider and most of the hospitals are religious-based, or they do not want the political harm that comes to them in entering an agreement with you, and you can have your license. The director cannot do that after House Bill 59, 3702-303 was enacted. And that is really because the waiver power comes from a regulation, and the regulation states you can only waive if the requirement is not statutory. And as soon as this legislature tucked into this huge budget bill this provision that there be a written transfer agreement, now it's a statute, the director can no longer waive, which puts all of the power to license abortion providers in the state of Ohio in the hands of the local hospitals and in the hands of a local doctor. In Toledo, none of them would step forward and enter into a contract with this provider. Because of that, they're being denied their license to provide abortions to the women in Northwest Ohio, not because of the director made a decision. They're being denied because the legislature tied his hands.
Counsel, are
There
there
you go.
any?
You know, they're being denied. I'm telling you, aren't you sad about this? I mean, it's just too bad. I feel so bad that these abortion mills are being denied a license to butcher children because the hospitals don't want anything to do with them. I mean, let's all cry crocodile tears right now for all those chop shops around the state of Ohio who are struggling to try to make themselves look like healthcare centers and try to make what they do look like healthcare. I mean, I'm sorry. I really feel very, very sorry for them. I have a real soft place in my heart for them. Not, folks. You know, here's the thing. They say abortion's fundamental health care. They say women can't survive without it. They can't function without it. Abortion's health care. Abortion clinics are health centers, but they can't get licenses. It can't be one thing and not the other, right? You can't have it both ways. Either they're health centers or they're not. And if they're health centers, then hospitals are going to enter into transfer agreements with them. And the reason why they won't is simple. They butcher babies and they maim women, and they're sick and tired of covering up and cleaning up their messes. And they don't want the political controversy. She admitted that once or twice in her testimony. And the reason why it's controversial is because there's a large portion of the folks in the state of Ohio who think abortion is abhorrent, that abortion is murder, and the legislature, which is primarily pro-life, has been passing pro-life laws. The bottom line is this. Capital Care Network of Toledo can't meet these standards set forth by the Ohio Department of Health because they butcher women and children, and few hospitals are willing to clean up their messes after they harm patients. Evidence of this, okay? The hospital that could provide them the services, so to speak, of giving them a transfer agreement, the main one is called ProMedica of Toledo, a Toledo ProMedica hospital. And ProMedica doesn't want anything to do with this. Rightfully so. ProMedica is a hospital. They provide health services. They don't clean up messes for abortionists. And here's the statement from ProMedica, and I think this will tell us everything we need to know. Toledo, this is from the CEO of ProMedica. Toledo ProMedica Hospital does not have transfer agreements with abortion clinics. It's plain and simple. However, with or without a transfer agreement, we will perform any necessary treatment of women or any patient in need of emergent care. We are steadfastly committed to providing care to all who present themselves at our hospitals. So they're saying, listen, we will still take care of anybody. We're not excluding anyone. We're just not going to get involved with abortion. This issue, they say, is between the abortion clinics and Ohio lawmakers. We do not want to be put in the position of choosing a political stance that is both divisive and polarizing. Our only commitment is to live our mission by ensuring we provide solid health care. That is the position of ProMedica. Now, Mr. Producer, if you would put up the next slide, which is the petition to ProMedica. What we want folks to do is simply this. Thank ProMedica. Thank ProMedica for making a good business decision to stay out of the abortion controversy, one way or the other. They are staying neutral in this. They're saying we're not going to side with the abortion clinic, and we're really not going to side against it. We're simply going to do what we think is best for our patients and for our hospital. And in that, We don't want to get involved in the controversy. So what you can do is you simply go to our page, Project Week link, and there's going to be a petition there, and you can send a message to the CEO of ProMedica, just simply thanking them for staying out of the abortion controversy because you believe that abortion is not health care. They have chosen not to provide a written transfer agreement for Toledo's Capital Care Network. And in so doing, Capital Care is likely going to shut down. So, folks, if you would, go to the website at projectweekleak.com, and there is a ProMedica petition that you can sign right there, sending a short message to the CEO, thanking them for staying out of the abortion controversy in the state of Ohio. So, folks, that's what we want you to do. Here's the bottom line. We're going to know in about 30 to 45 days, the Ohio Supreme Court will hand down its decision. I don't read tea leaves on the court. I think that's a bad idea. But from what we can tell, I think that my hope, my belief anyway, is that the Ohio Supreme Court is going to rule in favor of the Department of Health and saying that they have every right to require ambulatory surgical centers to have transfer agreements, therefore forcing Capital Care Chop Shop in Toledo to find a hospital that will provide it. And if they can't, they're going to get shut down. Bottom line. I will say this, and I'm going to predict. It may not happen right now, may not happen in the 30 to 40 days, may not happen in a year or so. But Capital Care Network of Toledo is going to lose. They're going to lose because they kill babies, they hurt women, and they're unable to do things legally for that reason. You can't practice vice virtuously, as Father Frank Pavone has said so well, that they're going to continue to break the law and do things that are unethical. So that's what's going to happen eventually. I predict that. And if that happens, Ohio will be going from 7 abortion mills to 6. And of course, there's more others that are also hanging in the balance, including preterm and the so-called Women's Center in Dayton, Ohio, run by abortionist Martin Haskell. Those two are also in jeopardy as well. So, folks, keep your eyes tuned to what's happening on the Mark Harrington Show. We'll keep giving you updates about the Ohio Supreme Court ruling here in 30 to 45 days and the continuing saga of Toledo's Capital Care Network. And we'll keep talking about this until that place is shut down. And be certain to contact ProMedica by going to projectweeklink.com. Sign the petition. It immediately sends an email to the CEO thanking them for staying out of the abortion controversy between the state of Ohio and Capital Care Network of Toledo. Now, finally, I want to bring up a couple of some special events that are coming up as we get into our full semester and the busy time of the year again this fall. First of all, the first thing that we're going to be involved in is that, as I mentioned before, preterm has also got a case before the Ohio Supreme Court in preterm versus John Kasich. That's happening on September 29. Yours truly will be in the courtroom. I'll be bringing you a report from that hearing. And then we have on October 3rd, the so-called Christian abortionist, Willie Parker, will be speaking here in Columbus. And we're asking people to attend that and kind of figure out what this guy has to say. And I think it's important that we be able to respond to a guy like this. Willie Parker will be in Columbus on October 3rd. And then, of course, and more importantly, on October 2nd, we will launch from October 2nd to the 25th. Our fall campus tour begins, and it will take a full month there. And we will be blitzing the Ohio and surrounding states, the university campuses, with our pro-life outreach. And our young people will be going out every single day to one of many of the universities and colleges in the Midwest. That includes Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. So pray for us, pray for our young people as we go out on university campuses, and pray for a just verdict in the Ohio Supreme Court case of Capital Care Network versus the Ohio Department of Health. We'll be finding out again in about 30 to 45 days. So stay tuned to us every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You can come on Facebook and listen to the Mark Harrington Show live here on Facebook and other social media platforms, 1 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday. And one last thing, tomorrow I'll be coming to you live from a location I'm not going to disclose to you right now, bringing to you some breaking news that you're going to want to listen and watch for tomorrow, sometime around this that we've been a part of. So
you've been listening to Mark Harrington, 14269-7808.